During the turbulent reign of Commodus, the emperor's security was a constant concern. Surrounded by enemies both internal and external, Commodus knew that his throne was far from secure. Amidst this atmosphere of distrust and conspiracies, he found in the Praetorian Guard not only an elite force, but the pillar upon which his security and power rested. Originally created to protect the emperor and his interests, the Praetorian Guard became a crucial instrument for Commodus, not only in terms of physical protection, but also as a tool to consolidate his authority and maintain his unblemished image. Commodus relied on the Praetorian Guard in ways that few emperors before him had. They were not just his protectors, they were his eyes and ears, eliminating threats before they even materialized. In return, Commodus granted unprecedented privileges to the Guard, ensuring their loyalty in an empire where betrayal could be around any corner. This symbiotic relationship profoundly influenced his administration, with the Praetorian Guard playing a central role not only in protecting the emperor, but also in suppressing dissent and intimidating any opposition. In this video, we will explore how Commodus used the Praetorian Guard to ensure his personal security and how this dependence shaped the course of his reign. We will examine the strategies and maneuvers he employed to maintain the Guard's loyalty, as well as how this complex relationship between the emperor and his protectors influenced the politics and administration of the empire. Get ready to discover how Commodus's security was intrinsically tied to the strength and loyalty of the Praetorian Guard, revealing the behind-the-scenes of one of the most tense periods in Roman history. When Commodus ascended to the Roman throne in 180 AD, the empire was already grappling with significant political and social turmoil. His father, Marcus Aurelius, had left behind a legacy of military conflicts on the borders and a capital rife with political intrigue. Unlike his predecessors, Commodus lacked the same intellectual or philosophical appeal. He was seen as a young emperor more concerned with luxury and personal glory than with administering the vast empire. This political vulnerability meant that his rise to power was marked by a constant need to protect himself from both real and imagined conspiracies. From the outset of his reign, Commodus realized that imperial power was a fragile entity. His predecessors, many of whom died under suspicious circumstances, served as a reminder that the throne was constantly under threat. Roman nobles, senators, and high-ranking military officers often saw the emperor as an obstacle to be removed if it meant advancing their own ambitions. This created a permanent state of paranoia for Commodus, where anyone in his circle could be a potential traitor, leading him to seek an unwavering protective force. The Praetorian Guard, created to protect the emperor, quickly became Commodus's primary line of defense against his enemies. Unlike previous emperors, he not only relied on his military or diplomatic skills to maintain power. He needed something more direct and tangible, an elite force that could act before plots were even conceived. Unlike others who saw the Guard merely as physical defense, Commodus viewed them as an extension of his own will. They were tasked with ensuring his security in every sense, not just on the battlefield, but also in the intricate political machinations that pervaded Rome. The relationship between Commodus and the Praetorian Guard began to solidify as he generously rewarded those who demonstrated unwavering loyalty. Privileges, money, and power were granted to those who secured the emperor's protection, creating a relationship of mutual dependence. For the Praetorians, the survival of the empire was no longer the priority. The focus was exclusively on preserving Commodus. Thus, the Praetorian Guard became a key element in maintaining power, an entity that more than ever determined the course of the empire and the emperor himself. Over the years, this relationship transformed Commodus's reign into one marked by oppression, censorship, and fear. He used the Praetorian Guard not only to fend off direct enemies, but also to stifle any form of dissent within the government and among the populace. The Guard, ever alert to Commodus's orders, acted swiftly to eliminate any perceived threat, becoming a vital instrument in maintaining his power as the echoes of conspiracy and revolt intensified around him. The origins of the Praetorian Guard trace back to the days of the Roman Republic, but it was only with the advent of the empire that this special force acquired the central role it would play during Commodus's reign. Originally created as an elite unit meant to protect the emperor and his family, the Praetorian Guard held a distinct status within Rome's military forces. They were better trained, better paid, and enjoyed privileges that set them apart from the regular army. Their primary function was to ensure the emperor's physical safety, but over time, their role evolved into something much more profound. As emperors began to recognize the political power held by the Praetorian Guard, this force became increasingly influential behind the scenes. They had direct access to the emperor, something even the most powerful senators could not claim. This proximity to power placed them in a unique position to directly influence political decisions and even decide who had access to the emperor. In many cases, the Guard was used to eliminate political opponents, either through assassination or intimidation. Commodus recognized this potential and used it to his advantage. During Commodus's reign, the Praetorian Guard was employed not only for the protection of the throne, but as an active tool of control and oppression. They were tasked with quelling uprisings, eliminating political enemies, and even suppressing freedom of expression within the Senate. Thus, the Guard became Commodus's armed arm, executing his orders ruthlessly and ensuring that his authority went unchallenged. Anyone who opposed the emperor, from senators to military leaders, could be quickly eliminated by the Guard. Commodus knew that to keep the Guard loyal, he needed to ensure constant privileges and rewards. Thus, the Praetorians came to enjoy wealth and prestige they had never possessed before. The Guard's salary was increased, and many of its members were promoted to influential positions within the empire's administration. At the same time, Commodus reinforced the importance of loyalty, constantly reminding them that those who dared to betray him would face devastating consequences. This policy of rewards and punishments kept the Guard firmly under control, willing to do anything to preserve their status. Over time, Commodus's reliance on the Praetorian Guard became so intense that the empire itself seemed to revolve around this elite force. His political decisions, his style of governance, and his personal security were deeply intertwined with the Guard's interests. This symbiosis, while effective in the short term, created an increasingly unstable empire where power was centralized in a small group of soldiers who, though loyal, were driven by their own interests in an unrelenting pursuit of privileges. From an early stage, Commodus understood that survival on the Roman throne required more than just military or political power. Absolute loyalty from his closest protectors was essential. To achieve this, he built a symbiotic relationship with the Praetorian Guard, offering benefits and privileges in exchange for unquestionable loyalty. Commodus fully trusted that as long as the Praetorian Guard remained satisfied, his power would be assured, even in the face of internal or external challenges. This silent pact between the emperor and his guard was based on mutual advantages. The Praetorian Guard, aware of its importance to Commodus's rule, was quick to demand greater rewards. The emperor, in turn, spared no effort to keep the military elite content. They received exorbitant salaries, luxurious housing, and influence over imperial decisions. In return, the Guard functioned as a shield, not only physically defending the emperor, but also smothering any political threats that might arise. Ambitious senators, disgruntled military officers, or even influential citizens could all be neutralized by the Guard, ensuring that Commodus ruled without significant obstacles. This alliance, however, was not merely material. Commodus emotionally manipulated the Guard, constantly reminding them of their vital role in the empire. He fostered an atmosphere of fear and distrust, where the possibility of betrayal was always imminent. This ensured that the Guard remained vigilant and loyal, always ready to eliminate potential threats before they materialized. The symbiosis between the emperor and the Guard became so strong that it was often difficult to distinguish where Commodus's power ended and where the Praetorian Guard's influence began. The relationship between Commodus and the Guard became a convenient alliance that dictated the course of the empire. While the Guard ensured that Commodus's throne remained stable, the emperor offered guarantees that their privileged position would never be contested. This created a cycle of mutual dependence. Commodus needed the Guard to survive, and the Guard needed Commodus to maintain its privileges. However, This symbiosis led to an increasing distance between the emperor and the people, and even between him and other political factions in Rome. Over time, this excessive dependence on the Praetorian Guard began to erode Commodus's legitimacy. The Roman populace and the Senate increasingly viewed the emperor as a ruler who relied on brute force and intimidation rather than sensible policies and dialogue. This indiscriminate use of the Guard to maintain order undermined trust in the government, turning Commodus's administration into an era of distrust and fear. Despite this, the emperor seemed oblivious to the criticism, fully relying on his alliance with the Praetorian Guard to keep him in power. While previous emperors relied on the Praetorian Guard to defend the empire against external threats, Commodus saw the Guard as an essential protection against internal enemies. During his reign, he faced a series of conspiracies, many involving prominent figures within the empire itself. Instability and betrayal were constant, and to survive, Commodus needed to use the Praetorian Guard as a tool to dismantle these threats before they took shape. The Guard thus became more than a military defense. It evolved into a network of intelligence and surveillance at the emperor's service. The Praetorians did not act merely as soldiers. They were Commodus's eyes and ears in Rome, spying on conversations in the Senate, on the streets, and even within the imperial palace. Privileged information was passed directly to the emperor, who acted swiftly to neutralize those who might pose a threat. Conspirators were captured and executed before they had a chance to execute their plans. In this way, the Praetorian Guard became an extension of Commodus's paranoia, eliminating even vague suspicions of betrayal. One of the most notable episodes of this relationship occurred when Commodus's own sister, Lucilla, attempted to orchestrate a coup to remove him from power. The conspiracy involved senators and high-ranking military officers. However, before the plan could be executed, the Praetorian Guard, acting with speed and efficiency, dismantled the plot. Lucilla and her co-conspirators were arrested and executed. This event further reinforced the Guard's importance to Commodus, who came to rely almost exclusively on them to handle any form of dissent or rebellion. The constant use of the Praetorian Guard to eliminate internal enemies created an atmosphere of terror in Rome. The Guard, with almost unlimited power, acted with brutality to ensure the emperor's security. Anyone who dared to question Commodus's authority or suggest a change in government was quickly silenced. Senators, military personnel, and even ordinary citizens lived under the constant threat of retribution. Over time, this led to increasing distrust of the Guard, which was seen not only as the emperor's protector, but also as an oppressive force that maintained power through fear. However, the Praetorian Guard's role in protecting Commodus from his internal enemies came at a cost. By resorting so frequently to brutal methods, the emperor ended up isolating himself from his own allies. Increasingly surrounded by betrayal and distrust, he governed with an iron fist, using the Guard as his primary instrument of oppression. In the end, Commodus's dependence on the Guard created an unstable empire where fear and violence replaced dialogue and politics. During Commodus's reign, the public image of the emperor was crucial for maintaining control over the vast Roman Empire. More than in any previous era, popular perception of the leader had a direct impact on political stability. Aware of this power, Commodus used the Praetorian Guard as an essential tool, not only for his physical protection, but also to shape and preserve his image in the eyes of the people. The Guard acted strategically to ensure that the emperor's reputation remained intact, even amidst growing controversies and criticisms. Commodus's image manipulation was evident on several fronts, from the gladiator arenas to the statues and coins circulating throughout the empire. He portrayed himself as a divine figure, often comparing himself to the demigod Hercules, seeking to reinforce the idea that his power was granted by the gods and therefore unquestionable. The Praetorian Guard, with its presence on the streets and in the Senate, played a central role in maintaining this narrative, eliminating any opposing discourse and ensuring that the populace saw the emperor in the desired light. The Guard also acted more directly, controlling the spread of rumors and suppressing any attempts to discredit the emperor. Dissident groups, especially within the Senate, were severely punished, often without any public trial. This strict control of information was part of a larger strategy to maintain the illusion of a strong and invulnerable emperor. By suppressing critical voices, the Guard ensured that the narrative of Commodus as a heroic and unbeatable ruler continued to circulate freely, protecting his image from significant damage. Additionally, the Praetorian Guard played a central role in organizing and controlling public events in which Commodus participated, such as the famous gladiatorial combats in which he himself fought. These events were carefully choreographed to reinforce his image as a powerful and fearless leader while satisfying the public with spectacles of violence. The Guard's presence during these moments was vital to ensure that nothing went out of control and that the people's admiration was maintained, regardless of the political tensions simmering behind the scenes. However, this manipulation of image had its limitations. The growing disconnect between what was presented to the public and the reality of Commodus's governance began to generate dissatisfaction, especially among the upper classes. Although the Praetorian Guard managed to stifle open criticism, it could not fully control the rising discontent forming among senators and military officers. The manipulation of Commodus's image, as effective as it was initially, began to prove insufficient to maintain the cohesion needed within the empire. Despite all the power and privileges granted to the Praetorian Guard, the relationship between Commodus and his guard began to deteriorate over time. Like any highly rewarded force, the Praetorians began to view their roles more as a means to secure personal benefits, rather than a loyal duty to the emperor. Commodus's excessive dependence on them created a sense of invulnerability within the Guard, which eventually led to a dangerous reversal of power. The same force that protected him now had the capacity to decide his fate. As Commodus's rule became increasingly erratic, his excesses, whims, and tyrannical behaviors alienated both the political elite and the Guard itself. The emperor began to govern with growing brutality, not only against his enemies but also against those in his closest circle. The Praetorian Guard, which once benefited from its proximity to power, began to see that Commodus's survival on the throne might no longer be advantageous to them. In an empire where political stability was crucial for maintaining privileges, the emperor's unpredictability came to represent a real threat to their interests. The situation worsened when Commodus, suspicious even of his most loyal allies, began to promote executions within the Guard itself, eliminating those he believed to be conspiring against him. This climate of fear and paranoia spread rapidly. Instead of reinforcing the Guard's loyalty, these actions only accelerated the deterioration of the relationship. The emperor, who had once expertly manipulated the dynamics of rewards and threats, lost control over the Praetorians, who now saw his removal as a way to preserve their own privileges. In this context of mutual decay, the Praetorian Guard, fed up with Commodus's abuses, actively participated in his downfall. In AD 192, a conspiracy involving members of the Guard and figures close to the emperor resulted in his assassination. His own mistress, Marcia, and the prefect of the Guard, Leto, were involved in the plot that ended Commodus's reign. The same Guard that had for so long ensured his safety now saw him as an obstacle to the empire's future and thus did not hesitate to betray him. This final turnaround marked not only the end of Commodus's reign, but also the transition to an era of instability in the empire. The Praetorian Guard, which had already played a decisive role in the rise and fall of other emperors, once again proved that in Rome, loyalty was volatile and could be bought or sold depending on the circumstances. Commodus's death thus became a symbol of how excessive reliance on a military force can be the ruin of any emperor who underestimates the power of those who protect him.